to our next speaker, Alexis Frank. And I want to say this one here, oh my goodness, she's amazing. She is certified life coach, empowerment expert. She puts me in my place sometimes when we have our monthly our monthly meetings. She really specializes in helping women and mothers prioritize their well-being, but not only their well-being as a whole, but she helped a lot of entrepreneurs with their businesses. She thrived in helping them scale their businesses as mothers to be able to better support their families. So overcome her own personal experiences. Please hop on and tell us more about yourself.
Thank you, Neshe. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm really grateful to kind of be here and share the story that I have because I think all of us experience something so similar but also so different, and I think it helps to know all the different ways that trauma can show up for you. I think it's really important to recognize, especially as someone like me who has dealt with complex PTSD, that trauma isn't reserved for someone who had it worse than you. Trauma isn't reserved for people that, got blown up by an IED in Iraq or Afghanistan. I think a lot of us shy away from getting the diagnoses that we need and the care that we need because we think that it's not bad enough or that it's not good enough to warrant what it is that we're feeling. And we think, oh, because somebody has it worse than us, that surely, we're not dealing with what we think we're dealing with. And sometimes we can gaslight ourselves into believing that we're not good enough to get the care that we need. And that only sows into the kind of racial disparities that come back at us because we're not advocating strong enough for ourselves to show them, listen, this is what it looks like for us. So, like Neshe said, I am a life coach and a business strategist for moms, for women everywhere. And I've had a real focus lately on eldest daughters. And if you're the oldest daughter in your family, you know what I'm talking about, the responsibility, the burden, everything that comes with being the oldest daughter in your family. That's where a huge focus that I have is you come into the world, and the second that you can talk, you're expected to help. Your parents see something in you. Your parents talk about the sacrifice that they created for you, and now you become this person that everybody wants you to be, and you kind of lose yourself in the process, and you kind of give your power away to other people in the process. And a huge part of why we're here today is because we gave our power away to somebody else that we thought that we should be able to trust in the healthcare field, when in actuality, like Ashley was saying, it's like the power is still with us. We know our bodies the best. And if something's wrong, you should know that something's wrong. I think sometimes, though, that we're not taught to listen to our bodies, especially as women, especially in the field of when it comes to even our personal pleasure. Being a woman, all of that for us is being taught that that's wrong. We're raised to feel like we're here for man's needs. We're here for everybody else's needs but our own. What we want for ourselves isn't important. And so by the time we get to the place of birthing children, and especially when we're pregnant, they're like, oh, well, now everything's about that baby. Everything's
Mhm.
about that baby. And it's like you're just taught that. Like, and imagine it, you're an oldest daughter, you got to take care of younger siblings. You finally find something for yourself. Oh, whoops, now I'm pregnant. And now all of a sudden my life isn't about me anymore. And it's like, whoa, when does it get to be about me? When does it get to be about me? And the biggest thing I want to stress is the importance of it is always about you. There's always been about you. And we talk a lot about filling your own cup before you fill others. And it's like, I'm dead serious about that. My clients, I don't play about that. That's like overflow. Because when you're giving from a place of stress and you're giving from a place of lack and a place of scarcity, you're not giving yourself the best version of yourself. And you're not giving your children, you're not giving your family, you're not giving the people you want in your life the best version of yourself too. And they deserve that, and you deserve that. You deserve to have the most fulfilling life for yourself. So when it comes to birthing and it comes to carrying children, they just kids. Give them a bottle, go get a massage. Give them a bottle, go take a nap. They be all right. They'll be fine.
Yeah, I
So
told you she be real. She be so real, and I love it so much. And you hit on something, right? And I want to ask this question just for personally something that I went through, right? When you made the comment that once we have kids, and this kind of go into like, postpartum, this mental health and everything. when we have kids, people always mention it ain't about you no more, it's about them kids. Do you feel like, what is your point of view on, do you feel like that impacts how we actually mother? When we going into this, like, because even before we have kids, people always say, once you have kids, it ain't about you no more, it's about them kids. Do you feel like that plays a part on how a woman or a birthing person parent, and is that a factor what causes stress?
1,000%. Because once we hear that and once we believe that, we sow even further into our own neglect.
Mm,
Because something that we fail to realize is we're always trying to, oh, I just want to give my kids everything that I didn't have. But that's always seems to talk about the material things. That doesn't talk about the mental health aspect. That doesn't talk about regulated emotions. That doesn't talk about none of the care and the things that we felt that we needed. Them kids, they have enough shoes, they got enough clothes, they have the biggest birthday parties, they don't need anything else. But we constantly sow from a place of neglect because it's like we want to give them everything we say we didn't have. But one thing our children need from us is to regulate our emotions, is to seek mental health professionals, is to take care of ourselves. Giving our children everything we didn't have is having parents that actually listened, understood, didn't blow up at us if we didn't take the chicken out the freezer by the time they came home. That is what we really need to give to our children. But we think that, okay, well, it's not about me, which means I can't sow into myself. So I have to continue to give from a place of my own neglect
mm.
because everything has to be about them. And we forget that that's not actually what that means.
How many of us can relate to that? Let me know in the chat. Just drop a one on there. How many of us can relate to that? It's so true, and it's scary because we don't really think about how our environment, our community, and the people that is around us impact the way that we parent even before we become a parent, or the things that we do in our pregnancy. We
Mhm.
don't realize how all that plays a part and come together, and that is a crucial component of motherhood, of our maternal health that we really have to emphasize. So, how did you overcome it yourself?
What, like neglecting myself?
Yeah, like at the
Um, well, after I had found out that I had a blood clot in my lungs after I had my third baby, and I had to go back into the hospital, and it's because it was during COVID. They wouldn't let my husband come. They wouldn't let me have the baby. They were like, "We're gonna admit you," and then the only space they had for me was like on the cancer floor, and I was just like, "Well, this is disturbing." And they isolated me at first because they didn't know it was COVID. And I allowed myself to go down a dark hole. I allowed myself to, I was like, what? I don't even understand what this is. And the doctor who gave me the news she was a practitioner, a fellow woman of color. I had actually been avoiding my entire pregnancy because she wasn't listening to what I was asking for in my birth plan. And she was the one who actually told me what was going on. And I was like, okay, but I was like avoiding you the whole time. And now I have to talk to you. And I had to go on antidepressants after about 4 months after I had Audie because I just felt like every day I couldn't breathe. Even though I knew that the clot had cleared, they had caught it super early because I know my body. And I had said something before I left the hospital, and I was like, something's not right. But I went home anyway. And I was like, I just felt like I can't breathe. And my doctors were like, this is anxiety. And I was like, okay. So I went on an antidepressant and I couldn't really find a healthcare practitioner that I liked. And so after a while, I started leaning into somatic exercise. So I started leaning into more meditation. I started leaning into breath work. I started leaning into EFT tapping. I started leaning into all of the unconventional, non-Western ways of handling any type of PTSD or any type of event that normally the healthcare system in America will just try and push higher and higher doses of antidepressants on you. And it's not to say there's anything wrong with them. They can be life-saving medication, but it wasn't helping me the way that I wanted to. And upping my dosage wasn't making me feel better. I was like, I have got to release myself of this. And so that's when I went on a mission to be like, who am I? what do I want? How do I advocate for women? How do I advocate for myself? How do I want women to choose themselves? And it was through somatic practices, and it was through understanding breath work. It was through understanding that generational trauma lives in your body. Whatever my mom was dealing with while she was pregnant with me, I carry. Whatever her mom was dealing with, she carried, and now I carry. Nobody likes to talk about that. Nobody
Mm,
likes to talk about whatever she was dealing. You think that only what she ate went to me?
that
No.
part.
Everything she was dealing with went to me. And it was like, how do I release myself of something that doesn't even belong to me? And
Mm,
how do I reclaim my power for something that I never had asked to be even taken from me? How do I get outside of the labels that society puts on me? Because I'm not just a mom, I'm not just a coach, I'm not just a professional. Who I was before all of those titles, she matters. And
hmm
she never stopped mattering to me and to everything that I want and to everything that I want for my children. And so it was just a slow process of what do you want for yourself? It required me to let loose a lot of people in my life that were not supportive of who I wanted to be, who were not supportive of what I was saying, my struggles were. And sometimes overcoming some of these traumas that we deal with when they start with a birth, it spirals into something so much bigger
hmm
than you could have ever imagined. But it's all related, it's all connected. And it is, again, as like Ashley is saying, it's like you're the biggest advocate you have for yourself. Nobody's going to, and if you gotta cuss, if you gotta scream, if you gotta sit there and say, I'm not going anywhere
hmm
until you do something about this. Every time I've gone to the hospital for postpartum, I've ended up in the hospital after each one. I have bought snacks, I bought a change of clothes, and I'm like, we're not leaving until you tell me what's up and before you give me something to get up out of here until my numbers are changed. Because even with the blood clot, they were like, it doesn't seem like a blood clot because your blood pressure is fine, your oxygen intake is normal, all of your indicators. And luckily, they were like, I have that good insurance. I got TRICARE. So they'll run the test. And so they're like, let's do a CT. And they found it in the CT. But I was like, you're not, we're not leaving here.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is when you decide who you are or who you want to be, the person that you see in your future, what is she doing? Is she staying
Mhm.
quiet or is she advocating for herself? And if
Mm,
she's advocating for herself, then you're advocating for yourself. And that's how you become her. That's how you become powerful. And that's how you ultimately become the highest version of yourself.
listen, I'm over here like, cause she just laying it out there, and I love it. You hit so many things. You hit for one, cause that was similar to me. I had, I was seeing floaters, and I had migraines, but I didn't have protein in my urine. Because of that one indicator, when I brought it up to my OBGYN, she ignored, right? And I'm sitting here like, no, I'm pretty sure I may be experiencing preeclampsia. Like I did my own research. But again, to your point, I was thinking about who that future Neshe one is and how will she show up. But I had to get there. I had to learn that we trust the healthcare space. We trust our healthcare professionals to care for us. And I was in the same situation because of that one indicator. They was like, "Oh, no, it's not. You're fine. You're working." And I wound up being hospitalized after
Mm.
my first one. So you hit a valid point as well as insurance. Sometimes that insurance, if not all the time, play a big part.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm such an
educating our,
advocate for like single payer healthcare in this country. It's like just because we're a military family doesn't mean that we should have better insurance than everybody else in this country. I don't shy away from going to the doctor and tell them to run all the tests because I know that I'm going to be protected. And everybody, especially women that look like me, should have exactly what I have. I'm not trying to hoard that for myself. That's so ugh, don't get me started on that. But it's like everybody should have access to the same things that I have access to. We didn't create this type of thing in this country just for only a certain few people to have access to it. Like, run the test, send
That's
it.
real. That's real. Oh my goodness, y'all. So if you have a question or a comment, please put it in the chat. And then we're gonna get back to it at the end of right before the end of tonight's event. But thank you so much, sis. That was powerful. The nuggets. I told y'all should be checking me, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.